What's up, y'all? This is going to be my chapter review for JJK 259, so if you're not caught up, we'll see you in the next one. All right, first of all, what a chapter. I've said it before, I'll say it again, emotional roller coaster, right? We lose one brother but gain another. The law of equivalent exchange. It's tough. I'm still not over it, honestly. It's been a weird combination of having the joy of Toto kind of like mute the sorrow from Choso, but like the longer it goes, the more depressed I'm getting about this. But anyway, really quick, we're going to go over our brief recap of 259, but before I get into that, I just want to say I have already put out a lengthy video all about Toto, so we won't be talking about Toto in this video. Check that out if you're interested. And I also put out a video talking about the implications of finding out that Yuji and Yuta soul swapped. So we won't be talking about that in this video either. So check those out if you're interested. But now let's get into our brief recap of what actually happened this chapter. So 259 is largely about Choso and his relationship with Yuji. The chapter picks up with Sukuna casting the fire arrow, unleashing complete devastation across the domain, causing Choso to sacrifice himself to protect Yuji from it. They have their moment, Choso fades away, and Yuji is left shaken. But Toto has his triumphant return, having potentially saved everyone else that was caught in the fire arrow, and is now here to lift up Yuji. And the chapter ends with hopefully some Jump Kaisen coming our way. All right, I forgot to mention this at the start, but in this chapter, we learned about the fire arrow and the binding vow and how all of that works, and I actually already put out a video covering that, so we won't be talking about it in this video, but go check that out if you're interested. Really, what I want to focus on for this chapter review is Choso. We will answer some questions at the end, but Big Bro here is the main course, and that's because he is such a beautifully written character, and his end was bittersweet, but it was amazing, right? Gege did such a great job writing not only this chapter, but Choso in general, and I don't know, there's just a lot I want to talk about with it. You know, the character that is half curse, half human, kind of, you know, the exact dichotomy of what this story is exploring, which, you know, humans versus curses, right? But it obviously goes way deeper than that because Gege is very philosophical. We are exploring the soul, the mind, the body, all of these things, how different interpretations of the world determine how you interact with said world. And so with Choso, we get to see that from both angles, right? First as a curse and then as a human. And the big, you know, swivel turning point for that was his discussion with Yuki. And then what thrust that forward was his relationship with Yuji. Let's start by going back to the beginning of this chapter, which Gege opens with a flashback, the purpose of which is to show that Choso is a terrible teacher. Okay, not really, right? The real purpose is to show that Choso is instinctual, which is why he is a terrible teacher, because he can't explain the how or the why of what he's doing. He just does it. And the poetic bookend to this in the very same chapter is Choso sacrificing himself for Yuji on instinct, because of course he would, right? His sole mission in life is to be a great big brother, and what else would a big brother do besides protect their younger brothers? So that was just such a beautiful full circle moment, and this wasn't just a bookended moment in this singular chapter. This has always been Choso, right? This man is pure instinct. He is not a man of meticulous plans. He just goes, right? And one of my favorite examples of this is the first time he sees Yuji, especially in the anime, right? When Yuji jumps down the stairway and it's just no thoughts, on sight, immediate piercing blood. You know, Choso has just always been a man to just reflexively do what his heart is telling him. And that heart aspect becomes more apparent over his transformation from curse to human. Again, spurred on by Yuki, really, you know, fleshed out by Yuji. You know, she said, you have died as a curse, so live on as a human. And he fully encapsulates that, right? Because what is more human than completely sacrificing yourself for somebody you love? So Choso not only came full circle thematically, but literally. He was able to find his place in the world and live as a human, live for his brother, and actually do what he thought was the highest honor for a big brother, to pave the way and protect them. And of course, Gege, in his continuing mission to inflict maximum emotional damage, has this moment as the first moment Yuji calls Choso Big Brother, something Choso has been wanting since they first met. Just once. Ha! Just one time. Just once. You ain't slick, Gege. And you know, something interesting about this moment where Yuji and Choso are at this picnic table, kind of having this like afterlife moment before Choso passes on, is very reminiscent of the moments Sukuna had both with Jogo and Kashimo. So is this purely just a narrative device that Gege uses at some points, or is there something specific to Sukuna and Yuji that enables this type of afterlife moment? Is there anything to do with the cursed realm here? It's hard to say. Like, I would have originally assumed it was just a thematic moment when it happened with Jogo, but then with Kashimo it got me thinking, and now with Yuji it's got me really thinking, especially because of the connections between Yuji and Sukuna, right? They may uniquely have this kind of, I don't want to call it an ability, but there just may be something more than narrative device here. So I'm very interested to find out more about this. And this isn't the Gojo agenda video, but something I like to point out is that Gojo didn't get one of these weird limbo moments. And before anybody says the airport, not the same thing. That was like entirely Gojo's thing. Sukuna was not present there. With Jogo, Kashimo, and now Choso, you've had two like real entities present. So it's another reason that I think Gojo's coming back, because he didn't get one of those moments. So after the emotional gut punch of losing Choso, Gege doesn't give us a second to breathe and has the triumphant return of Toto, a brother for a brother. And of course, this was hype. I've talked about it at length at this point. And like I mentioned, I put out a long video going over all things Toto, but it bears worth mentioning here the narrative symmetry that Gege has brought to the forefront, because the last time we saw Toto was basically the exact same situation, right? He came in at the last moment to save and lift up a Yuji who is on the verge of a breakdown. You know, previously in Shibuya, he had just lost Nanami, just lost Nobara, and was, you know, crumbling, but Toto swoops in and save him. Same here. After having just lost Choso, his resolve was shaken, but Toto comes in to save him, which begs the question of what other story notes might we hit along this cyclical storytelling as this comes to an end. Previously in Shibuya, we know that Yuji and Toto put the jump down on Mahito, but they couldn't finish the job because Kenjaku comes in at the last moment. So could we see something similar? They can't finish off Sukuna because could Kenjaku come back, or maybe like spiritually in the form of the merger? Like, you know, the merger prevents them from finishing off Sukuna because he enacts that, and that causes, you know, whatever it causes. I'm just curious what else we could see here. And speaking of Nobara, there's some interesting stuff to point to, the least of which, or not the least of which, is Toto's return, especially if he does have his hand back, considering that was idle transfiguration, which is what happened to Nobara. So could she come back? There was also mention of soul resonance, but I think this is a lengthier subject that probably deserves its own video, so be on the lookout for that if I can find time to squeeze it in. But finally, for this video, I had a couple people ask me if I could break down exactly what was happening with Choso in his final moments. So shout out to Count and Draco. Thank you guys so much for the support. And yeah, I think what was going on here is that Choso literally converted his entire being into this barrier for Yuji. He created it out of blood. And as we saw, he was like speaking with Yuji on the inside of the dome. So like almost as if like he got in front of Yuji like this and then just started pouring all of his blood into this sphere. And yes, he as RCT and as a cursed womb, he has more blood than a normal human, but just the amount of heat and damage and the length of this attack, this bomb explosion, if you will, required Choso to literally pour all of himself into it in order to maintain it that long. And this is why there is nothing left after this barrier dissolves away. Choso literally put the entirety of himself into that barrier. He had to continuously refresh the blood in order to keep it going throughout the duration of Sukuna's attack. So it's just poetic on so many levels, right? Choso gave all of himself to protect his brother. I mentioned this during my Leaks Night video, but this dynamic Gege has set up is so good, and I know I've been overusing this word in this video, but so poetic. Just the way he has put up the mirror between these two characters and using them as foils to one another. We have Sukuna, who literally killed his brother for his own self-gain, and then we have Yuji, the man whose brothers would literally die for him of their own will. It's so... That's going to do it for this one, y'all. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on this chapter down in the comments below, or even better, over in the Discord. We would love to have you over there. In any case, press F to pay respects to the best big bro there is, and thank you so much for watching.